He's a little one. But there's one right there, folks. Right off that point. Look at that. Dead heat of winter. We went out and tried to spoon a little bit. Couldn't find them schooling up to in the areas that I was looking. Figured I better catch a fish. Look at that. And ended up catching that fish. Today, I decided I would try something totally different that we've used for years, but a lot of people have gotten away from it. It's a finesse style of fishing. I did it for years. Fished a lot of US Opens doing this technique and cashed a lot of checks doing this technique. But before the drop shot came out, you know, we were all split shotting. But I do it a little bit differently. I throw it on a little 1/8 ounce weight with a little red glass bead. Then I put on it's basically a mini Carolina rig, or a Carolina rig, only a finesse style. And put the swivel up, then you tie on a little bit of a leader, and then you put your worm on there, your finesse worm. And it drags the worm across the bottom, and the weight down here is ticking on the glass across the bottom, and gets the fish's attention, and they come up and grab the worm. But we've caught a lot of fish doing this over the years. A lot of people have gotten away from it. And what's so crazy about the techniques today, so many people are drop shotting, which replaced the split shot rig. And this technique might come back. I mean, when they get away from it and the fish don't see this all the time, it's a fun technique to throw. You can drag this thing and work it just like basically a drop shot. The only difference with this rig versus a drop shot rig is when you see fish sitting right under the boat, the drop shot rig's really nice. You can just drop it right underneath your boat there and catch those fish, to where you got to kind of cast this and drag it. But it's an awesome deal. Now, the reason why I don't use this, I call it the split shot rig. It's really a little mini Carolina rig, but I've always called it the split shot rig because I never liked pinching any kind of weight or anything to damage my line on, you know, like an actual split shot. So what I've done is just basically went the Jay Ellis style. Jay Ellis is the one that really got me going on this deal when I saw him doing this years ago when I was a kid. So I went to this, and I've caught a lot of fish doing it. And it's a lot of fun to throw. 8-pound test line, you know, you get out there and just finesse it like that, and you still use your little drop shot worms, you know. This is an oxblood with blue vein in it from Arizona Custom Baits. I really like it. It's got a little red flake in it, a little straight tail worm. You can throw a curl tail on there as well. Throw just about any little worm on there you want. But this particular color I really like for this lake here at Roosevelt. And so that's kind of what we're doing. Now, thinking about winter fishing, you know, we're here mid-January, obviously, and usually the fish are really schooling up in that cold weather, and you can get a good little spoon bite going on it. There's probably a spoon bite going somewhere. We could probably find, you know, if we hunted one down, but a lot of times I end up falling over top of them and start spooning and catching them. And I've got something hooked up for that, but when I'm not catching them doing that, a lot of times I'll get off on these points that have a deep water drop off to them and fish the points. Or I'll fish the channels. Like if you're going back into the back of a cove or something like that, right in the middle of the cove, and you know, 20, 30 foot of water in that area, you can catch them. And it's a lot of fun to throw. You're just using a medium action rod and spinning outfit. My Taipan rod works really good for this. And you know, get yourself a good spinning reel. I'm using the Ardent reels, an awesome reel, but it's a lot of fun to throw. And this is one of those techniques that when you're slowing down and fishing slow, especially the guy in the front of the boat tends to want to throw it out there a lot of times, and instead of reeling it back, we'll drag it. You want to drag this on the bottom. This isn't something you want to lift off. You don't want to lift this weight off the bottom. You want to just drag it. Get it to click over the rocks. The cool thing about this technique is when you're throwing it out there and you're dragging it and you feel yourself get kind of stuck on a rock, you know you're right around that area where a fish might be hanging out around structure. So you could kind of bump the weight a little bit over the rock and let the worm fall right around in that area right there. That's usually where the fish are hanging out. So it's kind of cool. It's a lot of fun to throw. It's one of them techniques I know a lot of folks have quit throwing, and you know, like the drop shot really caught on really well. It catches a lot of fish, but so does the split shot. And I think people have gotten away from it. And I enjoy throwing the split shot. You know, probably one of the hardest things to do to get used to is casting this particular rig. And you can't cast it like you would a regular lure. You have to kind of lob it out there. So instead of just taking it back and whipping it out there, you almost have to kind of swing it out there. Take it and just kind of swing it and let it fall. And it's hard to get used to at first, but once you figure it out, it's real easy. If you try to whip it too fast, it's going to go end over end and it's going to drop about 5 feet in front of you. So, or, you know, so you definitely want to, you know, it's kind of like the Carolina rig as well. You know, anything that's got the long leader on it with a weight up there on front, you got to lob those out there. It makes it a lot easier to cast. Main thing is this point comes way out and then drops off into like 30 to 40 foot of water, 50 foot of water. So I like to find those real hard drop-offs like that and just bring it off there and just kind of let it roll off that point or flat into some deeper water. Now what happens a lot of times with this kind of rig is it loads up. So you'll be pulling it and all of a sudden it'll just load up on you. I'm throwing it on 8-pound test line. I'm not using any braid on this particular reel because I've got that weight sliding up and down on it. And I just like using fluorocarbon line for this. Got him. Got him. Dragging that thing on the bottom. He's under the boat. Stay under there. He's under the boat. He's on the other side. There he is. Not a big fish, but that's what happens when you drag behind the boat. Sometimes they'll swim up underneath the boat. You got to keep your rod tip low. That's one good little trick when you're dragging behind the boat is when you start bringing them in, you don't want to do a whole lot. You just get that rod tip down there to where they can get up underneath the motor, kind of let them run a little bit. But yeah, what had happened was I threw out there and I was dragging right alongside. This point comes down and I was just dragging around right in front of it in about 25 foot of water. And he hit it. That's kind of what we were doing. You know, that's the cool thing about this rig is when you throw it out there, you make your cast, you can drag it behind the boat and just real slow and bump it over the rocks and you'll feel it. I felt him hit it. He was just a little guy, but still. When they get under the boat like that, and a lot of times guys will try to turn their boat, and you can do that at times if you can do it, but he had already swam up underneath the big motor. At that point, I don't want to hit the trolling motor or nothing. I'm just going to go ahead and come way over here as far as I can get, drop that tip down and just kind of keep pulling slow, and hopefully you can get them out from underneath these motors. So far we're finding these fish on around 20 to 25 foot of water. At least these little guys are. Boy, I'd sure love to find a spoon bite, but that's how you find a spoon bite a lot of times too, is you'll be out on these points, it'll drop off and all of a sudden there they are stacked up, and then you can grab your spoons and start throwing them down on them. It's hard to really rely, especially if you're tournament fishing or something, on a spoon bite because you're chasing fish all day long. They move. And you'll start the tournament out where you were practicing the day before catching them, and all of a sudden they've moved somewhere. I've done that quite a few times, and then you got to try to chase the fish down. I just got hung up. You know, when you get hung up a few times, a lot of times, especially by the weight and you're pulling on your rig, a lot of times what happens is you'll fray your line right above the weight. The weight slides up and down, but you'll feel it. You can feel it really good right there. We're gonna have to break off and retie there, but it's very important. I know a lot of people think when they get caught up that you gotta feel right here where the worm's at, but a lot of times it's the weight. So you gotta be able to feel that, and I can tell it's gotta be retied. It's usually where you're getting stuck right there. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna retie right there. So far it feels like the line's fine right here. But with this being on the bottom, getting stuck up in rocks, you know, you're constantly trying to get it loose. So always feel right there when you do get hung up. And retie, because it's worth it. Got him. Got him. Got that one. Right off that point. feels a little bit better than the last couple. Oh yeah. Yeah, that one feels a little bit better. Dragging it off that point. Knew there had to be something in there. Come on, buddy. You're good, you're good. All right. Yeah. There we go. A little bit better fish right there. And he choked it. Got it a little bit farther down there. There you go. You know, we just drug it off this point right here. Any place you can find a point that comes out and drops off into that real deep water. I mean, I'm sitting out here now in 38 foot of water, but on the other side of that point is like 90 foot of water. So I came up on the flat side and started dragging off that point and caught that fish. During the wintertime, you almost can't go wrong if you want to catch fish, especially with this rig here, split shot rig. I'll tell you, just fishing main lake points. Find some points that come off and drop off and just fish them out. Just drag the bait off there. And you know, there's gonna be fish on a lot of these points. You might only catch one or two and then you move to the next point, move to the next point. But you know, you'll be catching some fish when it's tough, when the fishing gets tough like that. Like I said, all I did was I threw up to that point and I just figured I'd just drag it out, drag it out. Now there's one thing about this particular rig you gotta remember, setting the hook's a little bit different. You wanna do more of a sweep motion when you set the hook instead of a sharp yank. You know, you wanna just, when you feel the fish hit and he starts pulling a little bit, you just kind of sweep the rod tip. I'm using a real sharp hook. It's an offset shank hook. Let me show you what I'm doing to hold this bait on. You know, normally I throw like a rebarb hook for my drop shots, but for this particular rig, I like to have a little keeper on there, keeper style. So what I'll do is grab an offset shank hook. It's a little 1/0 Gamakatsu hook. And all I'm doing, and that helps hold that bait. And the reason why I like it so much is because a lot of times when you're pulling this particular rig and you're pulling these weights over top of rocks, sometimes you're having to give it a little bit of a sharp, you know, pop. And when you do that, if you're using a straight shank hook, these real soft worms will just bind up on the hook and you have to reel it in and throw it out again. This helps hold the bait on there a lot better. It acts like a keeper. So you want an offset shank hook for this type of rig. Then we'll bury it in like so and make it look straight. And the other reason why I like the swivel versus say doing the split shot as well, and what I love about doing this is it prevents you from getting a lot of line twist. So when you're throwing a straight worm like this and it's twisting around down there, the swivel will actually turn this and it'll just turn this and you won't get all that line twist in your reel on your line. So that works out really good. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it's got that little clicking noise there, and that right there really attracts the fish. They see that, and then all of a sudden they see the worm behind there, and you can throw a little craw back there even if you wanted to. You know, when you're pulling a split shot or even a Carolina rig or this mini Carolina rig, I'll tell you what really helps you and maybe initiating a few more strikes is a lot of people when they get hung up, they pull and they break off right away, or they turn the boat and they go straight directly over top of it to try to get it loose. Let me tell you something. Stop a minute, pause, let a little bit of slack out on your line. You know you're caught on a rock or a bush, that worm's probably free back there, and if you just give it a little bit of shake and just let it sit there a minute, a little bit of shake, sometimes there's a bass looking at that bait. And if you go in there, you might spook it, or if you break off right away, you don't have the opportunity of catching it. I have caught quite a few bass just by getting hung up and shaking the rod tip a little bit, putting a little slack in, and having the bass see that worm dance around and they grab it. So always give it just a few shakes there. You might be surprised you'll catch a bass. Fish on. You got me caught in a little tree there. I was like, am I on a tree or do I have a fish on? I was just getting ready to change worms because we got in a little bit darker water. He ain't a big fish. That was the first cast. We just came around the mountain there, and first cast catch him in about 19 foot of water. But I was just getting ready to change worms because I'm thinking I'm in a little darker water. Sometimes you want a darker worm or something with a tail on it. Sometimes when you get in this muddier water, when it starts getting a little bit dingier and you're not getting bit, you can actually switch over to maybe a curly tail or something a little darker, like a real dark purple worm or black worm or something like that, and get these fish to bite. But evidently it's fine. You know, I get asked a lot about what colors I like to throw in the wintertime. And if I'm in real clear water, sometimes a light purple or something like that work. But my two favorite colors that Arizona Custom Baits makes is the oxblood with the red flake in it. And that's the one with the blue vein. That's the one we're throwing today. And then I also like the oxblood deluxe. And they look pretty similar. The only difference is, the one thing I love about the oxblood with the deluxe is it's got just a little bit of purple and copper flake in it. It's an awesome worm to throw. And those two worms, something kind of earth toned, I really like. Something crawdaddy and earth toned like that are my two favorite worms. And whether I'm fishing 5 foot of water or whether I'm fishing 40 or 50 foot of water, these two worms here have done me really well. And I really like those two colors right there. That's not a bad fish, I don't think. He's coming. Yeah, they're out there a little bit in that channel. Oh, he's not a big fish, but not a big fish, but a fun fish, folks. All right, buddy, hang tough, hang tough. We came over to a little bit of that clearer water again, and after catching that little fish, couldn't get bit again over in that area, so I came back over here around the bend where the water was a little clearer and caught him. You know, it's real simple. This is a real easy technique to fish, and you know, if you're out, it's cold, and you know, if you don't like doing a whole lot of casting, for sure, you know, it's a lot of fun, because basically you're pretty much just dragging it along. Tough day to say the least, but let me tell you something. The split shot or the mini Carolina rig, whatever you want to call it, really works when the going gets tough. Sometimes you got to downsize and you got to go to finesse. And a lot of these fish have already seen drop shot rigs. Drop shot rigs work great, but this offers the bait a little bit differently. And I'll tell you what, you'll catch a lot of fish in the winter on this particular technique. So give it a try. We'll see you next week. I'm Johnny Johnson. Now, see, that's what I'm talking about, folks.